Hello, welcome to Staring to the Abyss. I have a friend here who's kind of like a living bone that's right on my bed beside me. And with me, as always, is Matt Brandenburg.
I'm just digging lots of holes just to put my hand in.
And Vitlame Mist.
There's something trying to burrow out of the walls here, and I don't feel safe.
I promise it's not me.
It's not
Wink.
me.
Well, it's something, and I don't like it.
Today's episode, we're going to be discussing Pugelbone by Nadia Bulkin. Nadia
Bulkin.
I had a late night last night. But Nadia Bulkin. And this is actually one of the first stories I ever read by her. And it always kind of stuck out in my head as one of like my favorites from her.
It's a good, weird little story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
It is a story.
Now,
If you haven't read her collection, you got to do it. Her collection's so fucking good.
is this in that collection?
It is.
Okay. Because also for listeners, it is up on her website. So that's where I read it. But I wasn't sure if she had put it in the book.
Yeah, it's in the book. Both stories on her website are actually in the book.
Oh, cool. Well, that was nice of her.
Oh yeah, a little tease of her fiction to try to get some purchases. But no, for real, like the everything I've read from her, I've loved. Like, there's legit been like not one story from her where I'm like, oh, that was bad. Like, everything I've read has been top tier.
You know, it's something funny because if you'll have to remind me, we had her on when we were talking about Kelly Link's The Hat story.
Yes, we did.
Okay. I can't remember it, Magic Hat or something. I'm just making it up.
It was like magic. It was something hat or something hat.
Yeah.
Magic hat.
I don't know if it was called Magic Hat, but I'm sure listeners, Kelly Link hat, you'll find. Unless somebody made like cool hats with Kelly Link's name on it, and maybe they did, and buy that too.
That's a depressing story. It's a good story, but that was depressing.
Yeah, but that reading this, these are completely different stories, I'll say. But like I could see a connection.
Oh yeah,
as in writing style and just concept, like this kind of strange idea of a thing. If I remember, that one had teeth. This one has bones. But there's more to it than human body parts. But that's my first off the top. All I know is I felt like it had a similar feeling. Oh, I guess kid stuff too. We'll get into the discussion actually of this, but just to kind of take you back to the archives of our show.
And for those of us who are interested, and you live in the Boston area, Kelly Link is actually going to be in Brookline Booksmith next month for her new book.
Oh, dang.
So I'm going to try to go to that because I do like me some Kelly Link.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But before we dive into Pugelbone, go down our media recommendations.
Oh, yes.
I know, Matt, you finished. I've also finished History of the World Part 2.
Yeah.
And that was the dumbest, funnest thing I've seen in a while.
Yeah.
It misses hard. But when it hits so hard.
Right. I mean, one, it's just great. Mel Brooks is still doing something, even though I'm sure he was like only lightly touched most of this. But
I mean, I don't know. A lot of it feels like Mel Brooks humor. And there's like some that you can tell weren't written by him.
Yeah.
But you can tell what skits are written by him.
Oh, yeah. Oh, totally.
There's like a certain aspect of Mel Brooks humor that no one can really get close to.
I just love, I mean, it literally has like everybody in this in some way, shape, or form.
I really hope, though, you like Nick Kroll, because there's a lot of Nick Kroll in this.
That's why I was, especially after because it was a 4-night event, 2 episodes per night. And I think it was after the second day or second night where I was like, you could tell Nick Kroll, because he did write and produce this too. You can tell he just gave himself a lot of work. There's like, once you kind of get later in, there's less skits with him, but like he's in probably like 80% of the skits. So
One of my favorite skits was a Thomas Edison first prank phone call.
oh god, that was great. That guy, and I can't think of his name, but he also produced.
Oh no, the Ira.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he produced and wrote a lot of them too, so he was in it. But no, it was a blast. It was a lot of fun to see. It's great his humor and just him poking fun at everything. He definitely has a view on things and likes to call out stuff. A lot of Jesus and Christianity and like where that was. The Russian Revolution thing was interesting. At the South, the discussion about the Civil War was really funny.
Skits were hilarious.
It was great. They did a lot of fun with that.
I love the Jews in space bit at the end, just like the original movie.
Yeah.
When, like, who is it? It looks up and it's like a CGI young Mel Brooks in a buff Jesus body, and they're like, "It's the ultimate Jew."
Oh man. So yeah, that was fun. That was a lot of fun. It's on Hulu. So.
If you're in Europe, it's Disney Plus, but in America, it's Hulu. I also am sad The Last of Us is having its finale tomorrow.
Oh man, it's finally done.
Well, for now, this season has been some of the best television I've seen in a very long time.
That's awesome.
Like, I know I rant and I rave, and I'm maybe part of it is how much I love the video game, but like the show is honestly like really fucking good. Like, I haven't cried this much at a TV show, and I don't even fucking know how much. Maybe like Better Call Saul was like the last time I cried this much at a TV show. Because Better Call Saul got me good a few times.
I actually have never seen that.
Oh, it's good. It's really good. But no, like, it's just really solid TV. This last episode, if Bella Ramsey doesn't get any like nominations for their performance, I'm gonna be like shocked.
Yeah.
Because that last episode was very heavy, and they did such a good job with it. And for someone who's like 19 years old and acting at that caliber, like, I'm very curious to see what the rest of their career is going to look like.
I mean, you already knew when you saw them in Game of Thrones.
Lady Mormont was the fucking shit.
She was, well, they were amazing.
Yeah.
In Game of Thrones. I couldn't believe the talent was there in such a small body.
This is a step up from the Game of Thrones performance too.
Yeah.
Like, it is really impressive. I will say though, if with Last of Us, it is a very heavy show. So if you're not in the mindset for like heaviness, it's good to kind of put it aside.
Yeah, I am actually doing that right now. I'm like, my mindset is not in there yet.
Like, yeah, like literally like there's like one episode where there's one of the most tragic quick suicides you'll ever see in a TV show. There's another one, this newest one, slight spoilers, has a character nearly escaping a sexual assault.
Jeez.
And like, it was in the game too, but it's seeing it in a TV show versus a video game are two different experiences.
Yeah.
One thing that like amazed me is, like, I don't want to spoil too much, but one thing I will say is there's a scene at the end of this last episode that came out last week that like made me cry. And it was very heavily emotional. And you look at Ellie's face, played by Bella Ramsey, and the face just looks completely traumatized. And you can tell like how much this character's been through, and Bella just carries that performance so well. And then I find out that was the first fucking scene they filmed in the episode.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, wow.
Like, that was the first scene they filmed. And I'm just like, how? Like, But I will say I am going to be sad that Pedro Pascal won't be on my TV after next weekend. I might have to try The Mandalorian again.
I was going to say, he's in The Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm.
I sound really bad when I say this, but like every time I try watching The Mandalorian, I make it 3 episodes, and then I just watch Lone Wolf and Cub. It happens every time.
It's fair.
But I don't know. I'm gonna try to get through The Mandalorian. Like I hear it gets better. I'm kind of burnt out on Star Wars, so that could be part of it too. Like out of all the Star Wars TV series, the only one I've been able to finish was Andor.
Yeah, that's fair.
And Andor was fucking great. I loved Andor.
Yes.
But that's the only one I've been able to finish. But I'll try The Mandalorian again just because I do want more Pedro Pascal on my TV screen. Even if he's behind the suit of armor. But besides that, I'm in the middle of 2 books right now. I have been reading Our Share of Night by Mariana Enriquez.
Nice.
Which, if you like political horror mixed with cult horror that deals with the horrible history of Argentina and fascist Germany, do I have a book for you?
So many check boxes I have checked.
But no, for real, it's a fantastic like cult story. It's like this our main character, he's on the run with his dad after their mother dies, and their mother belonged to a cult, and the cult now wants to take the son and make him a part of them. And the father has taken him on the run to try to hide and protect him from the cult's influences. And the book kind of goes back and forth through time and how the mother got involved with the cult and what the cult's goal is and how this involves the boy. And it is super intense, really, really good horror. And the other night I was stuck in the ER.
Oh, jeez.
And so I decided I didn't want to bring Our Share of Night because it's a hardcover and I kind of just like reading hardcovers at home. They're not really good for bringing about, especially when it's a 500-page book.
Yeah.
Like that's not really the best hardcover to bring around. So I had to rush to the ER. Not for me, I'm okay. But
Good.
For something to read, I grabbed The Complete Drive-In by Joe R. Lansdale.
Awesome.
And I started reading the first Drive-In, which is, I read it before, and that's such a good fucking book.
Yes.
Like, I need to read the other 2, but the first Drive-In, I remember I'm sitting in the ER, and I got to the part where, like, it describes the couple eating their baby, like, raw, uncooked. And I'm just like, I really hope no one's looking over my shoulder.
Yeah. Right. Oh my god.
That's such a bizarre story.
Yes.
Like only Lansdale could have thought this story up.
Right.
And then besides that, I read one manga this week, which I've mentioned before, and it is Rooster Fighter.
Rooster Fighter.
Have I mentioned Rooster Fighter here before?
I think so.
I think so too.
It is a parody of shonen battle manga where the main character is a rooster.
Yes.
That has a super crow ability and uses it to make demons explode.
It's all coming back now.
It is
one clucking minute at a time.
Yep. It is still hilarious. It actually gets kind of deep the more it goes. Like it actually has. It sounds stupid to say it this way, but beyond the chicken puns and beyond the demons exploding, there's actually a big heart to the series.
Okay. A big chicken heart.
A big chicken heart. It's like the last. Yeah, it's like I don't know. It's hard to explain if you don't read a lot of shonen, but it really kind of twists a lot of the shonen tropes, not in like a going against them way, but in just kind of repurposing them type thing. And it really gets deep into like the emotions of a lot of the side characters.
Oh, that's good.
That are kind of going through the story. But I will say the last chapter had a dam that got broken from a flood, and our rooster had to use his super crow ability to stop the flood from killing all the people in town. And the final line of the chapter is, "How dare they make such a crummy dam? Really makes my crown curl."
Okay. That is ridiculous. Oh, I love it.
It's stupid, but it's really fun. And I'm just like, I'm sad it takes Viz so long to release volumes, because the next volume doesn't come out till August.
Oh my god!
So I gotta wait until August to see what happens next.
Just leave you hanging for some turkey.
Yeah.
Or rooster, whatever. Some bird.
It's just one of those series where, like, I remember when I was working at Barnes and Noble, this came in and it just looks so stupid. And I'm like, I'm gonna buy it. And I bought it, and I'm like, this is actually a lot better than I thought it was gonna be. It's still stupid, but like, it's more clever than you'd expect it to be, beyond its stupidity. And the art's actually really good.
That is really funny.
I'll send you a picture, but
yes.
Matt, what about you?
Yeah. I need to see this rooster in action.
I'll send you some pictures in the Discord.
That's so awesome. All right. So for me, I finished 2 books. The first one is Christi Nogle's collection, The Best of Our Past, The Worst of Our Future.
Ooh.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I want to say it came out maybe a month ago through Flame Tree. This is her first short story collection, and it is amazing. You know, I think last year around this time I was talking about her first novella, Balua, and that was also really good. Well, this is just following suit. These stories, you know, some are old, some are somewhat new. I think there's maybe one in here that's like kind of never been published before, so that was kind of fun to see. But this is like weird and Shirley Jackson-esque, and just this kind of, you know, it's just her style, her look at families and relationships, of course, but then just a lot of like weird house stuff and just weird, it's a weird collection, but like sort of in a way that's accessible. I know for some people weird can be and I know even for myself, sometimes it's a little like just a bunch of random words put together and you're like, all right, I appreciate what's happening, but I don't know what's going on. But in this, she kind of has it. She found like a really good balance. So, you know, she's got a story in here where this family, and every time one of them dies, they like a smaller version, like a super tiny version kind of falls out of their nose. And so the son is, I think it's a son, is collects his grandmother's little person, and they put her in a dollhouse that would be sized for a regular dollhouse. And so she's kind of in there, and then you're starting to get this idea of the main character. He's on his deathbed, and he's trying to like show his wife this process, but then you're also starting to get this idea of like, well, what happens when that little person dies? Does another smaller person come out? And then so on and so forth. And they actually do find like a bathtub full of these super tiny, really tiny people, and it's just this kind of interesting like thing. And again, it's just weird, but a lot of fun. There's a great one of the most original takes on zombies I've seen in here, where the two last survivors are, you know, doing their survivor thing, but they start thinking that, hey, maybe if we eat the zombie's brain, we'll be immune. So they're starting to try to figure out how to eat a zombie brain and collect it. And that one's just fascinating to read. I'm just looking through some of these other ones. There's this really short kind of flash piece called Packet C that really stood out to me, where they buy like a I don't know, like a craft, you know how like sometimes they have those like kind of craft kits where you can make like an anatomical plastic body with all the parts inside. but this one they're making something a little different that might come to life, and so that was just a really fun kind of thing. But anyway, everything in here I just had an absolute blast with, and she's a pretty powerhouse voice that I think is starting to gain some traction, and I'm really hoping that she gains even more traction, because I think she is a really powerful voice in this weird fiction kind of world, and it's always nice to see more people in there. So that's definitely a good one to check out. And my other one was Joe Kaplan's It Will Just Be Us, which is, and I've said this before, I think in one of my earlier ones, it's a brand new made up word called gothic-y, and this is very gothic-y. It deals with kind of a Winchester-esque house that was a giant mansion that people just kept building onto until all the rooms don't make sense, and there's room within rooms and there's doors everywhere. But the house also sort of just changes on its own, so you're never really sure where you're at. And it also collects sort of ghosts, more like memories, and it replays these memories or possibly future events. Not to spoil anything in there, but there's that too. And we're following older mother and her two daughters, and one daughter, the main character who's narrating all of this, first person kind of style, she had moved back and she's kind of dealing with the ghosts. And of course there's a giant swamp around this house, and so there's history with this swamp and hiding slaves, and then possibly there's a swamp witch in there. And then the story kind of kicks off when the other sister comes back pregnant. She's going to have a baby, and she's sort of a snotty sister and possibly having the baby that is going to kill everybody. So you're dealing with a lot of those things in here, and there's a lot of like weird time jumps where you're not sure who these memories are, like if it's a future memory, if it's a past memory, and what it's kind of showing you. Memories can't see the people, but the people can see them. And then you have like this ghost boy whose face is very blurry, and he is jumping around, say, killing these memories. So you're kind of trying to figure this thing out. But anyway, all that to say, it's a really interesting kind of newer gothic story. There's a lot of flowery language in here. Maybe depending on whose point of view, it could be a little too much. It took me a little bit to kind of get into that zone of like paragraphs of purple prose and lush descriptions, and you're like, all right, let me get the story going. But once you kind of get used to that, then you're in it, and you get what Joe Kaplan is going for. But she's definitely got like a style, and it works in this. And yeah, if you're into weird house stories, this is definitely one to check out. It Will Just Be Us. And yeah, that was the main stuff for me this week.
What about that Stalin musical?
Okay. Yes. A little bit of Jack Black singing some Stalin and how he's going to make everyone love him no matter what.
And what about you?
I have nothing to contribute. I feel so sad here.
It's okay.
It's just been like basically just work and surviving, and then just trying to get everything ready before the release.
Yeah.
But I am relieved to say that everything is ready now, so there should be no problems after this.
Yay.
But well, just to say something, we have started watching season 3 of The Great North.
Oh, nice.
And I really like that show. It's so good. It's the same kind of feel-good show like Bob's Burgers, but like it's set in Alaska and has such a weird-ass family, and I'm like, I'm here for it. This is so fun.
I need to check that one out.
It has, Nick Offerman is in it, and I just love everything Nick is in.
Yeah, he is amazing.
You know what else Nick is in?
The Last of Us, I know that.
I was going to say that. But no, I love Nick Offerman. You should listen to an audiobook. Lincoln in the Bardo.
Oh, I thought that was you were just like, you should check out this thing called audiobooks where they play
No.
your book in
They play
audio
audiobooks.
format.
If you check out the audiobook Lincoln in the Bardo by George Saunders, who is personally my favorite short story writer and actually one of my biggest influences, but I digress. Lincoln in the Bardo is the only novel he ever wrote. And it's about the time where Abraham Lincoln's son dies. And Abraham Lincoln spent 3 days of mourning for his son. And the novel's told from the perspective of all
Nick
these.
Offerman?
Well, Nick Offerman's going to be involved.
Okay.
All these dead Americans who are ghosts, and they're watching the president mourn the death of his son, and they're talking about kind of like their life and aspects of American society and all that stuff. The audiobook has 107 narrators.
Holy crap.
Wow.
And one of the main narrators is Nick Offerman.
I see where you're going.
The audiobook, because there's 107 characters, and they got a narrator for every character.
Holy crap.
Because the way the book is set up is like you get a character's name and then their dialogue, and then the other character's name and then their dialogue. So like there's clear changes of when the voice is changing in the book. So instead of just doing that for the audiobook, they were like, why don't we just change voice actors?
Smart idea. I like it.
But wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of voice actors. But Nick Offerman is one of the main stars of it. So if you like
Abraham Lincoln,
he's not Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln actually has no dialogue in it.
Oh,
all the dialogue is done by the ghosts. And they're kind of like it's kind of him commenting, I think, on the. I don't want to get the religion wrong. I think it's Buddhism or Hinduism. There's this thing called the Bardo, which is this place of mourning where our spirit goes once it first leaves the body, and all our characters are inside the Bardo, kind of having this conversation while they're watching this tragic event play out.
Nice.
It's good. But yeah, I was just thinking Nick Offerman, and I was like, oh, well, if you like Nick Offerman, this is something you should check out.
Yeah, I should definitely do that.
But besides that, I think we should probably move into Pugelbone.
Yes.
Start digging up these bones and seeing what happens.
Yeah.
So, okay, first question.
I knew Matt would come up with questions.
I was trying to figure out what the Warren is supposed to be in this story. Is it
are you thinking of whether it's subterranean or not?
Yes.
I had the feeling that it was a subterranean one.
Okay.
It felt subterranean to me.
It felt like a different kind of slum, you know.
Yeah. Which and I think that's the case, but then there was like one little scene where she was talking about being on a roof of a building and being able to see the city. So like I guess maybe the buildings are growing out of the Warren.
Either that or it's like a big ass cave system that just expands.
Oh. Yeah. Okay.
I know I got that weird feeling too, like when she was on the roof. But I still feel like this is kind of like it is a slum. It's like at the beginning it was cramped, like when they began, and then it probably then expanded. It was supposed to be. It was like an experimental project.
Yeah. Which are like it's people are like, what the hell's going on? But like, yeah, I that okay, good, because that's kind of what I was thinking at first. I was like, well, especially because they're talking about digging all these tunnels and like how like their rooms are super small and people are on top of each other and all this stuff. And obviously with the name Warren, you're like, well, that's like what rabbits live in underground and all this stuff. And you're like, but then yeah, we get to that scene and I was like, well, if she's on the rooftop, like maybe it was growing out and something, but
well, my feeling is that it probably is like a subterranean system.
Okay. Yeah.
Like a bunker system or something like that.
Oh yeah, I like that.
Because you get the feeling like when they discover with the Pugelbones, she does mention that some of them came up to the surface
Yes.
when it rained. So I was like, yeah, that makes sense if it's then underground.
Okay. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, good. We cleared that up.
And now you need to give a synopsis about what the hell we're talking about.
You know, I'm giving the listener a taste. They'll be like, "What the heck? What are we talking about? Underground bunkers? I want to read this." So, Pugelbone, we're sort of listening into like it's like a case or like a counseling session between, I think it's Lisbeth and this doctor who I could scan through and look at the name at. But anyway, like
Dr. Roman?
Yes. And yes, Dr. Roman. And basically what we're getting is, so that's happening. That's the anchor of the story. And then we're getting into this Warren, which, as you heard us describe, is a system where all these people are living, very slum-like, but it's all really kind of tunnel-y systems. And Lisbeth is sort of describing what's happening in there. And we're getting these ideas that the city or civil security. So I think that's going to be another question we'll have in a minute. But like this group sort of ignores the Warren. And at the same time, we discover that there's this like these piles of bones and garbage that are kind of crawling around everywhere. So that kind of gives us like, gets you into the story. We'll kind of lay out the rest of the way, but I think that's a good start for somebody.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So that is like, I guess, brings up the other question. Did something big happen in the world? And is that why this Warren was needed and why there's a thing called like civil securities and stuff?
I think it was my interpretation of it was that it was also, while it was also an underground system, it was also kind of like a case system.
Okay.
Because it is mentioned that Lisbeth and her family is of the Mere people.
Yeah.
Which for me was kind of like almost a reference to the meerkats because they live underground too.
Yes.
And they are looked down upon. So it feels to me like she's also kind of getting inspiration from the Indian case system, like, the Untouchables.
Okay.
Where people don't really care about these people, but they will still kind of like take advantage of them. Like, the part about where this guy said, I heard that Mere women are tigers in the sack or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kind of has like that otherness to it.
Yeah.
So I feel like this will like, and especially with the civil security thing, it's definitely something to keep the undesirables down in the ground.
Oh, okay. I like that. Yeah, because it's interesting because she does kind of rate out, says like, we can trace our line back. We're the Mere group or Mere family. And, so that kind of leads you to believe like, I like that. Because at first I was thinking of it as like a last name and like this family, I don't know, well off like Rockefeller family or something like that kind of went into to crap. But
you mean like Schitt's Creek?
Yeah, yes, exactly, like that. But like now that you bring up that line, which I do remember in this about Mere women and tigers, I was like, so it's almost a label, which then goes into kind of what you're saying. So I that makes more sense because I like.
That's the feeling I got, at least. Like this is more like an examination of otherness.
Yeah, so like almost like a label.
I can see it.
Yeah, I like that because like we don't, and it's one of the things we were saying before we were recording. We were kind of talking about how this story would be awesome as something bigger.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Because like Nadia does such a great job of she and we've talked about this in other
she
stories.
she reins you in with this interesting narrative.
Yes, and this world building.
Yeah, this world building, and then she kind of just snacks you right out of it.
Yeah,
like she's dangling a carrot in front of you, and then when you try to take a last bite, she's like, not happening.
Yeah. Because it is short for listeners. This is like it's a short story. I mean, probably maybe 4,000 words or something like that.
Yeah, I would think about that.
And it like for all the stuff that she sort of like hints at, again, like with the mirrors and the Warren and the civil securities and these Pugelbones and this whatever the society thing is happening, like it does lend itself to something bigger, but Nadia does just like this snapshot of like, well, here's one character in this craziness, and I'm gonna let you just ponder it all.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is. So a lot of these questions that people are going to hear us ask is kind of showing like there's a big world in this story, and we are getting such a small piece of it.
Oh yes. It's like we're looking through the keyhole.
Yeah.
We're getting a very small portion of this world.
Yes, yeah. And I think it's mean because I want the whole plate. I'm still hungry.
Yeah. I should say that too. Exactly. So like, Nadia, if you're listening, we love this story and we want more of this story. And so our complaints aren't angry complaints. They're like, hey, you gave us a taste, but we need more.
we definitely need more of this. Like there's so much it can be expanded on.
Yeah. Because it's just this fascinating, because again, this description of the Warren and like tunnels and like people they're so narrow they can't go.
They can't, like, they're almost buried into the walls, and she also mentions like the walls are so thin that she could hear the neighbors, and and the neighbor right next to him asked her father to break her sister's fiddle because he could hear it through the walls, and she was apparently not a good player. So yeah, it's like all of these little knickknacks. You're like, this is amazing. Like, I love the details. I love this world building. And then she's like, yeah, that's it. And you're like, no, give me more.
Exactly. Oh yeah. I mean, it is. You just kind of keep looking and seeing just these small things, and like you get, and even sort of like the main crux of the story about Lisbeth, like for listeners, I don't think this is, I mean, again, it's a short story, so if we spoil, that's fine. But like the whole crux of this is she's trying to get her daughter back, but we don't even know fully what happened.
No, exactly. We don't know. Well, we know what she did.
Yeah.
She basically bashed the teacher's brains in the wall.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. You're right. There. That was it. Yes.
But we don't know why. Well, we do know why. She saw something in the wall, but using the teacher as an object to prevent that from coming through the wall was probably not the best idea.
Yeah. Which actually, that brings up a good question or comment or something, where it's, Nadia does this like reverse thing with the Pugelbones, because that leading to what you were talking about. Because at first she makes it seem very like these are real things. They even have a name for it. Helix Warren Cola.
Yeah.
But like as time goes on in this story, you start to like, it feels like they're not real, because it feels like Lisbeth is seeing them everywhere.
Well, that's, again, now I'm coming back to the otherness to it and how people and the case system and everything. I think Dr. Roman was not biased.
Oh yeah, no.
You can definitely see that she regarded Lisbeth as, as a mere person, really, like she looked down upon her. And I think you can see how the conversation between them develops from that. Like at first she seems like, okay, I'm willing to listen, but I'm giving you this and like this description that these are things were like they were Helix were on Colos. But then as as Elizabeth tries to like get her word on, like tries to convince her, like, no, this is what happened. This is what happened when I was a kid. He kind of like gaslights her.
Yeah.
And it feels like, and she's like, oh no, you're just a basket case because you're from that people. I'm not gonna help you. You're not gonna get your daughter back.
Yeah. Yeah.
It feels like that. It's like I'm not giving you a fair chance.
Right. And so you're thinking that then leads to the Pugelbones not being real, or?
No, I actually think I agree with Lisbeth this things being real. But
Yeah.
I think Dr. Pullman is basically just
they're real.
downplaying it.
Okay.
Because she said like they went extinct. So like it's basically like with COVID, you know, people say that it's over, and you're like, well, can you explain all these deaths then?
Yes.
And long COVID and everything. So I wouldn't say it's gone.
Yeah.
So
But-
it's a similar feeling that I'm getting from there.
Yeah. That I like that description because it does feel like exactly like that, and we even get like a comment from Lisbeth's dad about them. It's like such an offhanded comment about population control, and then the doctor's like, well, you're accusing us of something we didn't do. We didn't put them in there or anything like that. But again, it's that to lead back to kind of what you're saying with like COVID, it does feel a little bit of this kind of idea of just people saying it's done, even though it's not. And this is the same thing of that where you're like, well, just because they say it's gone, and like even at the point, the big spoiler at the end, you know, the doctor, exactly what you're saying is like, that, are you sure it was an accident? Are you sure you didn't really do this? And you're like, but it's those things you guys have been talking about this whole time.
Yeah. And I think it like also plays a lot, especially at the end with denialism.
Okay, yeah.
It's like at the end when with this abrupt ending, like she's in, I think it was in the subway. She's like on her way back home, and there's this guy who sits across from her, and he has like this huge gout or something like wrapped around his throat.
Yeah.
And we just see through Elizabeth's eyes that it is indeed a Pugelbone.
Yep.
But he doesn't see it. So for me, it feels like denialism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, it's such like a, and again, like that, the way that she structured it feel like it's the reverse of kind of what people commonly do, which is like nobody believes in this thing, and then eventually everyone believes in this thing. She has it where it's sort of like everyone denies it at the end, and doesn't see it except for our main character. And so it's kind of just this, it's a neat way to do it, a story like this, even if it is a little too short, you're still like, wow, she did something really kind of unique that we haven't seen in too many places. Have we actually described what the Pugelbone looks like?
Well, the reason it's called a Pugelbone is because they found like a remains of the guy called Pugel.
Yeah.
And so the name stuck from there. Like they just called it Pugelbones, and it was usually they found like scattered remains everywhere because, and this is a good description of how basically this is a slum, is because the people who died, they were buried together. And they said it was preferably, if it were blood relatives, but sometimes it didn't happen like that.
Yeah.
So these bones were basically scattered in the ground or just everywhere. And if they found them, they had this kind of like the parents had this kind of story that if the kid couldn't shut up, they would say that a Pugelbone would come and go into your mouth. And that would shut the kid up. And I was like, well, yeah. I mean, wouldn't you?
They'll definitely do it.
Wouldn't you clamp your mouth shut to prevent some disgusting bone from going into your mouth? And then when she finally sees one for herself, it's not just a bone. It's basically just garbage. It's
Yeah.
it's just a litter of everything just put together. But it has become sentient, basically.
Yeah.
It's like a little garbage monster. I'm like, that brings me to my childhood.
Yeah.
It's like, this is my horrid, morbid childhood right there. Garbage pail kids, anyone?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I love it because she describes it something like it's a bone that forgets that it's dead because it's not buried. I mean, there's a little bit of a better description of that, but basically like it doesn't know what to do when it doesn't have the earth above it. So yeah, it collects like torn up jackets and garbage bags and doll skin and drain hair. So it's that. It's like a weird garbage pail, whatever the garbage heap was from Fraggle Rock kind of thing, but it seems sort of small enough that it can fit through a vent, which we find out later. But yeah, it's just this weird heap thing, and it's so interesting, like, because you do get little bits, like, especially when they give it the official name, and they're like, yeah, well, we hunted them, we got rid of them all, and you're like, oh, that would have been an interesting scene to see a battle between these little heaps of garbage and people. But,
yeah.
Probably one of the more original monsters I've read about in a long time.
Yeah. Honestly, like, I just love the descriptions in this story.
Yeah, they're really good.
The sounds the Pugelbone makes.
Yes. Oh, I loved it. It was like, what, pillows falling or something?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
But like the way she described it was just you could picture everything.
Yeah. Oh, totally. She packs like amazing descriptions in here, and just everything. Her style is just so like boom in this. Yeah. So I think we can. There's again not much to spoil in this, but I feel like one of the cruxes of the story probably needs to be discussed. So I will say, like, read this. We've described, it's free. Nadia Bulkin, Pugelbone. I'll put the show notes. I'll put a link to the story in there. You can get it in what She Said Destroy.
Yeah, She Said Destroy.
So,
hopefully Nadia has another collection coming out soon, or coming out eventually, because I want more.
Yeah,
that's also so much. Yeah. I know it takes a lot to. I know, like, Nadia takes a long time to work on the stories, and they come out so good.
Yeah.
But another collection would be so nice to have.
It would be super awesome. So yes, read this, and now we can kind of do a little spoiler action with the brother dying.
Yeah.
I think that was like,
horrifying.
It was extremely horrifying. And again,
especially when she runs into the next room, and then she just has to listen to the monster sucking him dry. I'm like, wow, that's horrifying.
And this,
especially because this guy, like, she described him like he wasn't like the brightest bulb in the world, or like was a little bit slow, and I'm like, well, that just makes it worse.
Oh, and it's so like they set up. She sets up some good stuff on the brother. I think there's a part when she first meets that Pugelbone, and she talks about like feeling the it watching her, and she talks about like, well, her dad, when her dad stares at her, it feels like rubber bullets, and when her mother and sister, it feels like sharp knives. And then she's like, oh, and my brother, and then it's like ... which is, you can just know, like, especially how this ends, where it was kind of this probably loving affection that the brother stares at her with. So yeah, that was like, see, just that like little look, or even when the sister tells stories to them, and because their rooms are so small, they're just in hammocks above each other, and like he reaches up to hold her hand and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just these little hints that then lead you right to him getting sucked dry, and you're just like, holy crap.
The sounds that happens too. Like I mentioned the sounds earlier, but that gets under my skin every time I read it.
Yeah. And it was just let's just also talk about the great segue to that. It's like when she was like, "Oh yeah, I remember. People, we have to lock the doors because there are teeth that will come in." And I'm like, "What do you mean? What teeth?" And then suddenly just rams at the kid. I'm like, "Oh no, fuck!" Yeah. And I was like, "You treated that monster like a pet, you stupid kid."
Yeah, right. And that was like, yeah, exactly.
They did let it in. They let it inside.
Yeah.
Oh man, it just. But then that's what kind of leads up to like what I was talking about, where like you get this description, and then right after you cut right back to the doctor and said, was it an accident? And like, what did you do? And you're just like, wait, are these real?
Mm-hmm.
Especially because we get that talk about her breaking stuff, that apparently Elizabeth likes to break stuff. And so all these little random bits she then ties into this moment to make you question if these things are even real, because the doctor's even acting like, well, I just can't trust you. And this story doesn't seem, why did you do it this way and everything like that. And you like to break things, and you're just like, oh, geez.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. So I thought that it's just so much. I wish there was more to this story, because I think this is like a really cool one that she could explore and do something more with.
Oh, totally. But I will say we did get a really great story for what we have.
Yeah. Definitely, but she could span so much more. And I need it. Give me more.
Definitely. So, yeah, this was awesome. I think people need to read this if they haven't, and if you have, read it again, because I've read it twice.
And if you haven't read She Said Destroy, fix it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, and that's not even a suggestion. Fix it.
Yeah.
And you need to fix it.
That's perfect.
That's legit. Like, real talk. Okay. So when I was in college, I've always been a horror guy, but like, I was being the snooty college English major with a writing degree, being above kind of horror type stuff, despite my first creative short story for class was about a serial killer collecting eyeballs. But anyway, I was like trying to be highbrow and kind of edgy and kind of like turned away from horror,
Yeah.
And what got me back into horror was like, it was like a few different things, but it started with Joe Hill releasing Nosferatu, which I actually met Joe Hill on his book tour for Nosferatu.
Nice.
I still have my signed copy that he signed and everything. And then after that, it was Bird Box by Josh Mellerman. And then I kind of went back to the highbrow literature for a while. And then I read A Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay. And then Paul Tremblay led me to Nadia Bulkin.
That's awesome.
And She Said Destroy was one of the first like small press horror books that like I purchased. And I devoured it.
Yeah.
I read the whole book in like 2 days. I couldn't put it down. And so like I kind of associate Nadia Bulkin with like bridging me more into this kind of horror space I find myself in.
That's super awesome.
Without discovering She Said Destroy, I don't know if like my tastes would be where they are. I don't know if I'd be doing Abyss right now. Like I don't know where I'd be. And I know it sounds like existential, and I'm making it sound super dramatic. And you're probably right. But there's a little bit of me that thinks this is true. So let that little bit exist.
That's fine, I guess.
She Said Destroy feel that special to me.
allow it.
I really hope our audience goes and checks the story out because it's fantastic.
Yes.
And Vitlaman, where can listeners get in touch with you?
They can find me on Twitter at Vidlamans.
And Matt?
I am on Twitter too at BrandenburgDM.
And I am on Twitter 3 at Reedy53088. And Into Staring also has a Twitter account, which is at Into Staring. And this is Richard Gerlach saying, keep staring.